It was a quiet evening in Rosewood Village. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. In the center of the village was the grand Rosewood Garden, famous for its flowers and peaceful atmosphere. But this evening, something terrible happened. At 6:45 p.m., Mrs. Linda Baker, a well-known botanist, was found dead near the fountain in the garden. She had been hit on the head with a heavy object. Detective Clara Monroe was called to investigate the crime. Detective Monroe arrived at the garden and examined the scene carefully. She found several important clues: a broken flower pot near the fountain with traces of blood on it, a pair of muddy footprints leading away from the fountain and into the bushes, and a torn notebook page with the words "Meet me at 6:30" written on it. The detective thought, who could have done this? And why did they want to meet Mrs. Baker? To solve the case, Detective Monroe spoke to 3 people who were in the garden around the time of the murder. The first was Mr. John Parker, the gardener, who seemed nervous and claimed, "I didn't see anything strange. I was busy working on the flower beds." The second was Ms. Emily Carter, a journalist who had spoken to Mrs. Baker earlier and said, "I left the garden at 6:20. She was alive when I left." Finally, there was Mr. Daniel Ross, a rival botanist who admitted, "Yes, we argued, but I didn't kill her. I went to the cafe after our fight." Detective Monroe reviewed the evidence and the suspect's statements. The broken flower pot seemed to be the murder weapon. The muddy footprints led to a pair of gardening boots found near the shed. The notebook page suggested someone had planned to meet Mrs. Baker. Monroe thought carefully. The gardener was near the fountain, but why is he nervous? The journalist left early, but can I trust her story? The rival botanist argued with Mrs. Baker. Did he lose his temper? Now it's your turn to think about these questions. Why did the murderer choose the garden as the crime scene? What does the note mean? And who planned to meet Mrs. Baker? Whose boots were found near the shed? Are they connected to the footprints? Write your answers in the comments or think about them as you listen to the rest of the story. Detective Monroe questioned the suspects again. She found mud on Mr. Parker's boots, matching the footprints, and he admitted he saw Mrs. Baker arguing with someone, but didn't intervene. Miss Carter confessed that the torn page was from her notebook, but she insisted she left before the murder. Witnesses at the cafe confirmed Mr. Ross was there from 6:25 p.m., giving him an alibi. Piecing the evidence together, Detective Monroe realized the muddy boots and the broken flower pot pointed to someone who worked in the garden. The torn notebook page revealed that someone had arranged to meet Mrs. Baker. The murderer was Mr. Parker, the gardener. He had overheard Mrs. Baker planning to sell the garden to a developer, meaning he would lose his job. When she refused to listen to his plea, he lost control and angrily hit her with the flower pot. Detective Monroe concluded, Mr. Parker will face justice, and the garden will remain open for the village to enjoy. It's a tragic end, but the truth always comes to light. Key vocabulary recap: botanist, a plant scientist. Footprints, marks left by feet. Fountain, a water feature. Narrator, what did you think of today's mystery? Could you solve it before Detective Monroe? Share your thoughts and sentences using today's vocabulary in the comments. Narrator, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for another thrilling mystery. See you soon.